Today's episode is all about my favorite gardening podcasts. Gardening podcasts were a big help to me when I was learning to garden. It was maybe, I think, 2014, I started really binging gardening podcasts. And I still listen to them. I love them. I'm always learning something new. And for me, just as a home gardener with no, formal horticultural training, it's been so nice to be able to learn in an audio format that I can just put on while I'm doing stuff around the house or in the car, and just kind of make that time, I don't know, somewhat more productive. Doesn't feel, feels like I'm using my mind too. So I love gardening podcasts. Here are the ones that I listen to, and I've also got some that are on my to listen list, because I always have a list of podcasts that I want to listen to that I know I'll get to. Okay, first off, You Bet Your Garden. Oh, how I love this show. So You Bet Your Garden is hosted by Mike McGrath, who is hilarious. He was the editor, I think, of Organic Gardening magazine. But he's just funny. He's just so funny. And he has a great accent and very confident. And he's been doing this for 20 years at least, I think. He knows his stuff, but he is so funny. So the format of You Bet Your Garden is like a call-in radio show. It's not made to be a podcast. It definitely feels like a radio show. It's got like commercials and stuff, but they're not that bad. Don't worry. I think I had pretty much memorized the Espoma commercial from the archived podcasts. Oh my goodness. I think I can say it word for word. It's pretty embarrassing. Don't worry, they've updated it since. But yeah, so it looks like there's only 56 episodes when you pull it up on Apple Podcasts, but he changed networks like this time last year. So it's actually a weekly show that's been going on for like decades. It just used to be not on PBS like Rodale. It was on WHYY. So you can find the old ones. Just Google You Bet Your Garden WHYY, and they are so worth it. Like once you burn through these 56 episodes, or even if you just rather start at the beginning, just Google You Bet Your Garden Mike McGrath WHYY, like archive. I have them on my iPhone as like a different icon. This is the new icon. Sometimes there's a different picture, but with this kind of white font. And the old one was just a plain black background with a green font. So highly recommended. So funny. I still can't think about squirrels without calling them evil squirrels. Every time I listen to it too, like it's always talking about these fun events that are going on. And I'm like, oh, I'd so love to go to that. And then I realized that the event is in Philadelphia, which is obviously not in Canada. And that the event happened like 10 years ago. So that's a bit of a bummer. But other than that, it is pretty wonderful. So yeah, he takes calls and he does take emails too. And your question of the week. Okay, so love You Bet Your Garden. Okay, Away to Garden. Oh, okay, she is funny too. Margaret Roach is funny. She also comes from like the, I don't know, gardening editor, publishing world. I think she was from Martha Stewart, New York Times maybe. Anyway, she knows her stuff. She seriously knows her stuff, and she will get to the bottom of things. But you know what? She also has like a really nice way about her. I think she says horticultural how to and woo woo. So if that sounds like you, it's totally worth it. And she does like totally get to the bottom of things. And she has some really lovely interviews. She has a nice way of interviewing, and she seriously knows her stuff. And I don't know, I just really feel like I can trust her. So I'm always thinking, like, what would Margaret say? Okay. The Grow Guide. Okay, so this is one I've just started listening to with Maggie and Dave. So Maggie is an Instagrammer and Dave owns like a fairly super sustainable nursery here in Canada. But it's in Winnipeg, so it's very far from where I live. So I have not gotten the chance to go to Dave's nursery, but I wish I did. It sounds like they're doing things so wonderfully. You know, I'm just trying to use less plastic in my garden, and they're like testing out peatless soils and stuff and doing awesome things. So Maggie, they kind of build Maggie as like, a rookie grower, but like she knows their stuff. I don't know. And they're just really approachable, and they make it seem like anyone can garden, which they can. So it doesn't need to be this like fancy thing. It's not. These guys keep it approachable, and I like them. Also, they are in an even colder gardening zone. Like I'm in zone 5, and it feels sometimes like I wish I could grow that. They're in like zone 3 or something. They're in Winnipeg. Whoa. So it just makes me feel better. A little bit less zone envy there. Okay. Okay, Jill. So the Beginner's Garden with Jill McSheehy. I don't never know how to say her last name, but okay. So Jill is kind of, this is one of the podcasts that did not exist when I started learning to garden, and I wish it did. I really, really wish it did, because she really goes out of her way to make sure, although good information was abundant, I had trouble understanding all the gardening lingo, and like she really does stick to that. When I was starting, I didn't know how to sort through all these things in 2014. So she really, I wish she had been around podcasting in 2013 when I was in northern Alberta. But she's around now for you guys. So, and I still listen to her because I still feel like I know nothing about gardening. So she bills herself as the beginner's garden, but I've been gardening for a few years now, and I totally learn a ton of stuff. So if you're like, oh, I've been gardening for 2 years, I don't need this. Just listen to it. It's really, really quite good. She is so kind. She just seems like a really kind person. And she's someone who's learned recently. And to me, that is helpful because gardening wasn't something that I did all the time as a little kid. Like we had a few gardens, but in terms of like the bulk of what I've learned, it's been in the last 5-10 years, and same with her. And so she understands that some of this information that we're expected to have is not just not there for some of us that weren't like steeped in that gardening culture as children. So I thought because we had a garden, totally I've gardened before, but no. There are so many questions. I still have so many questions. So Jill's great. I'm so happy she's done this podcast. I need to listen to more of them. I need to catch up. Oh, so edible. Okay, so this is one that came out just when I was binging hardcore on gardening podcasts, and I ran out of podcasts that I could find that were strictly about gardening. This one I came across, it's like a homesteading, I guess. So Stacy and Amy are this lovely couple, and they moved out to the country, and they have a homestead, and they built this off-grid house, and you just feel like you know them. I remember waiting for every episode to come out and be like, what's happening with the house? Stacy and Amy are just they're very kind and approachable, and you just feel like you're in their living room and they're just like telling you how their week was or how their how things are going. Oh, just so wonderful. And for me, this was really inspiring because, I was living in an apartment when I started listening to this. Now, of course, we live in town. We have just a backyard. But I thought it'd be really great to move out to the middle of nowhere and have a giant homestead. But listening to this, they can do it, and they can do it. But it was a bit of a reality check for me. I was like, yeah, okay, that's maybe not what I want. Maybe a backyard is totally enough space for me. So yeah, it was good to get like a little bit of a peek into what starting like a straight up homestead is like for a family, and they are amazing. And yes, I sometimes feel like I live vicariously through them, but totally worth a listen. And yeah, just super kind. Okay, on the ledge, Jane is hilarious. Okay, I think we're starting to get into like the ones from the UK here. I just love their accents. I know that sounds funny, but anyway, so she's hilarious. Jane is hilarious. This podcast on the ledge is all about houseplants. Like they talk about the general things too, but I wish that I had found this podcast, or I don't even know when it started, but I wish that this had been the podcast that I listened to when I had an apartment, because you can spend a lot of time like dreaming about what having a yard or having a homestead would be like when you're like in an apartment. And this just would have been inspiring at that time for me. And it's super inspiring for me now because it is the end of October. And other than gardening podcasts and seed catalogs and writing gardening blog posts for you guys, I don't have a lot exciting in my gardening life. So yeah, it's going to be, houseplants are going to become front and center real soon here for me. I say this as I can't use my sink because there's a Boston fern in it getting its little sun bath. Gotta deal with that. Anyway, yes, Jane is hilarious. This show is great. And particularly if it's winter where you live, or you're in a smaller space, or you just like houseplants, super funny, very helpful. And you'll just start saying British things too. Oh, ye of little faith. It'll be amazing. Okay. RHS. Okay, so this goes into the category of like more formal ones. It feels more like TV or like produced show, which is great and different. And obviously the Horticultural Society is very trustworthy. And yeah, I like this when I feel like I want to listen to a fancy theme song and feel fancy. It's good though. It's very, very helpful. And I just like to see what's going on, I guess on the other side of the pond. And I just have dreams of going back to the UK and going to all the different gardens. I feel like I would appreciate them more now. Yes. So good. So good. Okay. Also in the UK category is the BBC's Gardner Question Time. I pretty much think of this as You Bet Your Garden from the UK. Yeah, so people call in and they get help, and they call in, from super fun places like in the UK. So that is fun. Okay. Joe Gardner. Okay, so this is another one that I probably should have listened to more when I started. I don't know, I didn't come across it when I really would have been most helpful, but he still has tons of stuff that's helpful if you've been growing for a few years or if you've been growing forever. Like, we all have so much to learn, and it's just also interesting some of the tangents that he takes. I guess they're not tangents, he means to talk about them, but yeah, more kind of garden living and reasons and inspiration, and it seems like it's going to be like a really how-to show. I know the picture makes it kind of look like that, but it's really what, like, look at this. 566 ratings. Like, yeah, it's worth it. It's very worth a listen. What's killing my kale? So this one is one I'm just starting to listen to. They don't have a lot of episodes yet, and they kind of come out in batches and like weird orders and stuff. But it's Annie and Natalie from the University of Minnesota. And I started listening to it because I found myself on the University of Minnesota Extension website all the time. It's a super helpful website. And so when I saw that they had a podcast, I thought, check that out. It's billed as integrated pest management. So yeah, like about pests, pest issues. But they talk about lots of stuff. So just because you're not interested in pest management, doesn't mean you shouldn't listen to this. They're funny, and I mean, it's a little bit more formal. It's formal and informal at the same time. They're not like trying to be entertaining or anything, but you can tell that they're real people, and it feels like a window into like the horticultural department in academia. And for me, I have zero university experience with horticulture, so it's kind of fascinating to look into that world and see what they're talking about. And yeah, it's like horticultural rock stars. Totally. Yeah, I just really like seeing what's going on in that world and taking what we can learn from that, because I certainly want to know those things. What studies are happening and what findings and way things are going. So yeah, this is one that I'm just starting to listen to, but it's quite good. In the same academic vein is The Informed Gardener, and Dr. Linda Tucker-Scott. I've been reading her blog for a long time, but this is also her podcast. Now, it's not on Apple. I can't find it on Apple, and maybe I'm just bad at searching, but I just listened to it. You can listen to it in your browser here. Like, it just plays right from this window on the Washington State University Extension site. But her job, as she describes it, is like to take this scientific literature and translate it for us, like for homeowners and home gardeners and people with, succulents in the windowsill. So I really appreciate that she is out there, like in the trenches, digging out these studies and doing her own work and making it approachable for us, and making sure that knowledge that has been so painstakingly developed is being translated out for the greater good. So I like her mission. I love how she always backs stuff up with her studies, and she's just funny. So yeah, Dr. Linda it's another one. As I was like, what does Dr. Linda say? Oh yes, I'm always wondering. So there's been definitely a few times when I've had a really specific gardening question, and I'll just Google like Dr. Linda plus my question. Same with Meg McGrath. Margaret Roach, yeah. She's just a trustworthy person for a home gardener to take advice from. Okay, so now we're on to some of the ones that are on my to listen list. I used to actually listen to the Living Homegrown podcast, but it has been years since I've listened to it. It was really, really great. But it was, again, one of those ones that I listened to when I ran out of like straight up gardening podcasts. It's kind of more, it's not so much homesteading, but it has like lots of kitcheny stuff like canning and stuff, which I wasn't super into then, and I don't have any time to do that kind of stuff right now. But I would like to get back and like cherry pick some more of her gardening episodes, because she's just a lovely person and I really enjoyed listening to her. So I'm going to get back to that, like creating a garden sanctuary. Oh, like, totally on my playing next list. Okay. Pioneering Today. So this is another one that I see coming up. And I kind of imagine it's going to be a little bit like Living Homegrown, is that I'm going to maybe cherry pick the garden ones, because she is in the homesteading field, and I'm not a homesteader at all. But yeah, I think I'm going to cherry pick some of her gardening ones and check it out. Guys, this is another one that I've just seen and I haven't had time to listen to. So yeah, I've seen it for a while and I just haven't had time to listen to this one. So that will be fun. I bet gardening. Okay, so yeah, if you've been on like any social network, you'll see Kevin's stuff. I didn't actually know that he had a podcast until it was just suggested in my podcast app, and I thought, oh, did I miss this? But yeah, no, I've been a little bit busy this year, so missed it. So I haven't listened to this one yet. I like that they're short. Like I see all these like run times, like 6 minutes, 4 minutes. So I feel like those would be good, like for the car or like places where you're getting interrupted lots, or to just like search specific things. I think that'll be really helpful. Yeah, and I don't know much about Kevin, but I know that he's on like every social network ever. Actually, he used one of my photos, which was super kind. He features one of my photos in an article, so I have like good feelings. So I will listen to this one. And the last one is The Garden Path. And yeah, this is just another one I have not gotten to. But yeah, hopefully I will get to this one soon. Okay, so I'll just go back through them and I'll put links in the description so that you guys know how to get to these. But yeah, total all-time fave, You Bet Your Garden. Love A Way to Garden. Currently loving the Grow Guide. Beginner's Garden is so helpful, so edible. I just, live vicariously through Stacey and Amy. On the Ledge, oh, so funny. RHS, yeah, I'm so fancy. I just feel like I'm on the allotment with Alice Fowler. Okay, yeah, British, You Bet Your Garden, Joe Gardner, and What's Killing Me? Yeah, so the extension, the University of Minnesota extension. The peek into academia and like the straight up academia translated for you. So those are the podcasts that I'm listening to right now, and then some that I'll be listening to in the next little while, hopefully. So thank you guys for joining me on this video, and I hope you found some new podcasts to listen to. I know I get quite into binging podcasts, and I hope you find some good ones here that suit your fancy. Okay, thanks you guys.